Hello everyone, Swing Wing Singh is back and wishing you all a very happy 2026. Today we are going to build the first build of 2026, and that is the Hella 148 scale SEPECAT Jaguar. Now I've already done an unboxing of this kit some time back, so if you're interested in looking at that unboxing, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And so here we begin with the supplies that I used for this build, and you can pause and have a look at everything that I have used for this build. So the construction began with the assembly of the cockpit parts as usual, and I cut off the seat, the instrument panel, etc. off the sprues and began with a little bit of cleanup. Here you can see me assembling the ACIS-2 ejection seat for the pilot. Now this seat is basically 3 parts and they just fit together very nicely. Once the assembly was done, I then painted up the seat and the instrument panel in black, the cockpit floor in gray, and then also detailed the interiors of the cockpit with gray. I then used camel acrylic sap green to paint up the rear cushion on the ejection seat, and then I used these paint pens to paint up the rest of the seat details. Now it's a bummer that they don't include any seatbelt detail either in the form of decals or otherwise, and so I also decided to just paint the seatbelt detail. Now the kit does include decals for the instrument panel, but they are absolutely horrendous, oversized, and they wouldn't stick without putting glue underneath them, so I avoided them. I then assembled the cockpit floor and the seat assembly inside the cockpit, and then I moved on to adding some weights. Now the instructions don't mention any weights to be added, but I used these ball bearings basically to add some weight into the nose of the Jaguar, and then I decided to close up the fuselage halves. You can see the fit is absolutely flawless. Alright, next came the assembly of the wings. Now the wings come in one single upper part and 2 different lower parts, and it was easy as pie to fix these parts together. They aligned pretty good. And then I attached the gun assembly on the left side of the fuselage. I then moved to the assembly of the nose and the horizontal stabilizers. Now you see the nose fits pretty good there, and it's got this long pitot tube, which is the trademark of the Jaguar GR1s, the very long pitot tube in front. At this point I fixed the pitot tube and then moved on to the assembly of the horizontal stabilizers, which also fit into those holes very well, and they are correctly aligned at the proper anhedral. Now you see that the wings, they basically slide from top onto the fuselage, and it needed a little bit of wiggling around, but it fit pretty nicely. Now talking about the assembly of the bombs, now each bomb is made up of 3 parts. 2 are the main body parts and 1 is the wings at the back. Now 3 out of those 4 bomb assemblies had the correct male and female locator pins in the 2 sections that were to be attached, but the 4th one had only the male attachments. So hella, what a mistake there. So I had to then resort to cutting out the extra locator pin from one of the halves of the bomb, and then I assembled the rest of it. I then moved on to the assembly of the drop tanks, hoping that this would also give me the same mistakes, but then the drop tanks assembled pretty nicely. Now here's the assembly of the exhaust. Pretty simple. You've got the exhaust nozzle there and the cover of the exhaust nozzle as well, which fits pretty nicely. Now this middle section is where I was skeptical that it would leave a gap and would have to be filled, but look at that. The part aligns so nicely. It's perfect, and it gives the perfect shape for the exhaust nozzles also to slide in from the back. Right, now in the Indian Jaguars, we had the dielectric bar out here on top of the rudder, and for that I will have to cut out these two parts. Now, if you've noticed in the unboxing video, I wasn't sure if they had included any assembly parts for this dielectric assembly, but I was pretty happy that they had, and I could find that in the sprues. Now basically this comes in two parts. You have to assemble the parts, taking care that you are assembling it in the correct direction, and then you have to slide it from top of the rudder. The instructions actually tell you to use the rudder as a jig and construct the assembly around the rudder, but I found that sliding it from the top was much better. Now, I had decided to mount the bombs on the outer hard points of my Jaguar and the drop tanks on the inner hard points. However, I made the mistake of connecting the longer hard point on the outer assembly points and the shorter one on the inner assembly points. I later realized that I made this mistake and had to take them off. Now, basically, if you've decided to go with the double bomb assembly, as you can see here, these hard points will fit only on the inner wing assembly points because they've got these two bombs to support, and hence they would need more support under the wings, which means they would need more wing area to be able to support those two bombs. The inner hard point, however, will only be used to mount the drop tanks, and you can see that there is a difference in the thickness of the inner and the outer hard points as well. Now you see that these FIMAT and ECM dispenser pods have the required thickness, which is the same thickness as is on that longer hard point, which supports two bombs. So I had to then resort to cutting out the longer hard point, and I made use of this hobby saw which I got off AliExpress about 7 to 8 years back. I basically cut out those hard points into two different sections and used the top section to fit on the outer assembly points of the wing. So the painting then began with me priming the entire aircraft and the other weapons with a black primer from 4S, and then I sprayed Fevicryl white thinned with water. This is for the squiggling pattern. Some people call it squiggling, some people call it mottling. So this is for the squiggling or mottling pattern on the upper and lower surfaces of the aircraft. This is to show a worn out look on the entire aircraft body. And then I moved on to the base coat of gray, and I had a little bit of fun with mixing camel acrylics with Fevicryl acrylics to create this gray blue tone of the gray that is present on the Indian Air Force Jaguars. And you see that the gray is coming out pretty light, but because this is an acrylic paint, it will eventually dry darker than what you see right now. And here you see after a few coats, you know, it's getting a little darker. And then I moved on to the mixing of camel sap green with a little bit of black to produce the olive drab. This is the camouflage pattern on the Jaguar and the drop tanks of the Jaguar. So I began painting that once I had that paint ready. And all of this is being sprayed at roughly 40 psi through my Sparmax 4 airbrush from a distance of about 3 to 4 inches away. The camouflage pattern was actually demarcated with blue tack, and I ensured some precision painting, ensuring that the color does not overspray. Alright, the next step was to detail the dielectrics on the leading edges of the air intakes, the wings, and the horizontal stabilizers, and I used this black Sharpie to detail the dielectric edges. And similarly, I followed up for the anti-reflector panel in front of the cockpit windshield, and I used the same black Sharpie to color up the anti-reflector panel. Right then, the decals were applied by applying Mr. Mark's setter on the surface of the aircraft, and then the decal was dipped in warm water for about 30 seconds, and then once it slid off the backing paper, it was applied in the position that it was supposed to go. The bigger decals like the fin flash, the roundels, etc. were pretty okay. They conform nicely to the surface, but the smaller decals like the no-step decals over the wings were really flimsy, and they would just not stick to the surface. In fact, for every one of those smaller decals, I had to apply glue underneath, and not watered down PVA glue, rather direct white glue underneath each decal for it to conform and stick to the surface. So it was basically a very tough and long exercise to get those smaller decals, 100 of them, to conform to the surface of the aircraft. I then applied a brown wash, and this is Camlin Chalk Pastel, thinned it down with water and added some dishwashing liquid to it to create that brown wash, and also used Tamiya Panaline Accent Color Black to accentuate the panels on the Jaguar. And once these had dried up, I used a cotton Q-tip to clean off the excess on the panels. Alright then, so this is the first time I used this ultra glue from Ammo, and this is a sort of a white glue that was gifted to me by one of my followers, and now a very good friend, of course, from Canada. The glue is basically very strong, and it leaves no residue and dries clear. Absolutely perfect for canopies and other clear parts. So here are the final beauty shots of the SEPECAT Jaguar IS from 16th Squadron Black Cobra's Indian Air Force in the standard camo that prevailed during the 90s and early 2000s on the IAF Jaguars. Now, my 2 cents with the Heller kit is that it is a fantastic kit to build. There are no fit issues at all with the kit. There was no filler required anywhere. The parts go together very nicely. The only crib that I have with this kit is the limited weapons load. The decals don't conform to the surface, especially the smaller ones. You would need a lot of glue under it to make it conform to the surface. But all in all, a great kit to work with. Definitely recommended for beginners and advanced modelers alike. I had a lot of fun building this kit. Of course, the limited weapons load could be accounted for if you're building a British Jaguar. You can use the FEMAT and the ECM pod as well. I did not, because I wanted to use a standard configuration on the Indian Air Force Jaguars. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed building the kit. If you liked it, please click the thumbs up to consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to comment, because I love interacting in the comments. Swing Wing Sing signing off. Bye bye, take care.